Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be joining us. We are thrilled that you are here for the August edition of Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food. I'm Charlie Arnott, CEO of the Center for Food Integrity, where our mission is to help today's food system build trust. Helping us do that is the good doctor, Dr. David Hughes, Professor Emeritus at Imperial College London, a global expert in food and agriculture trends. We learn much from him every single month when he's kind enough to share a fast 15 minutes with us. David, welcome.
Morning, Charlie. It's a fabulous August morning here. Dry as a bone, though.
We had 3 inches of rain overnight, so we are not dry at all. We'll have a little bit of flash flooding today, but that's all right. We're happy to have the rain. Well, as always, we have so much to cover today. We'll be discussing food fraud, new smart shopping carts. But first, let's take a quick look at what's happening in the UK and the greater impact on food policy. David,
Well,
I think you change agriculture secretaries more frequently than I change the oil in my car. What is going on?
no, exactly. Well, at the moment, August, not much, of course, because August is holiday for Europe. You take 2 days off for summer vacation. We take a month. And as I mentioned, July across England and Wales was our driest in 190 years. That's
Wow.
the highest, that's the driest on record. And yes, new Prime Minister is in. We flagged this last month. Andy Burnham, a Manchester man, which is the north of England. Incidentally, he's opened a number 10 Downing Street North. So to remind you, Downing Street is where our Prime Minister in history has lived in London, but this guy's decided that he'll have an offshoot in Manchester. Good on him. But so we've had plenty of Prime Ministers, but even more Secretary of Ag and Foods. And and he brought in his own. So that's our 12th Secretary in 10 years. But there was good news for me and my son Garth. People who go to pubs, that's me, are supporters of Mr. Burnham. And his very first policy action was to reduce business rates on pubs by 15%. Well, we've got three pubs, so were we over the moon? Well, sort of. That's $1,500 savings per pub, so that's 4,500, and we've clawed back half of the money that Mr. Burnham's predecessor took last year through national insurance and higher wage rates, etc. Impact on food policy, what's happening on the wider thing? Well, the inflation rate is unexpectedly low, actually. It's 2.3%. So
That
hurrah.
is a surprise. Yeah.
And particularly, there's a very sharp fall in beef prices. Like you guys, we're beef lovers, and people are happy to see that, and a cataclysmic decline in liver and kidney prices. So are we ecstatic about that? Well, I last had liver and kidneys in about 1956, Charlie.
Yeah.
So I won't be rushing to the store. However, food price inflation, yes, it looks good at the moment, but my view is that it often lags 12 months due to supply chain readjustments, and I just don't think we've seen these pass through yet. So we've got more to come in terms of food price inflation later in the year. What is helping from a consumer point of view is intense retail promotion. It's so our number one trade magazine for the grocery sector, which is The Grocer, they put together a representative basket each week and
Mhm.
then price it against the major supermarkets. And actually, the hard discounters, that's Aldi and Lidl, came out 11% lower than the big league supermarkets. And what's more, 40% lower than the premium grocer Waitrose, which is actually our equivalent to Whole Foods. Uh,
Interesting.
what else is happening here? I mean, oil prices. I was just checking that Brent crude is at $77 a barrel, which is lower than
Wow.
expected. Good stuff. And but things are happening here. China, for example, is building a ship line to the Arctic Ocean around China, up through the Arctic Ocean, across the top of Russia, and then into Europe, or then on. Why? Because they're concerned about, first of all, of course, Hormuz, but secondly, the Straits of Bab el Mandeb, another difficult term that we have to come to terms with. For example, if the Houthis block the Straits of Bab el Mandeb, then Saudi oil, which is largely going to Asia, has to go up the Red Sea into the
Wow.
Mediterranean, into the Atlantic Ocean, down around Africa, and then head to East Asia. I mean, can you imagine the impact that's going to have on fuel and fertilizer prices? It's really, really worrisome, Charlie. And
Yeah,
and for my mind, the Houthis are just looking at what happened, what the Iranians have done, and said that's our playbook. We don't, we can get away with that with the least damage to our forces. No,
sure.
dreadful.
Yeah, if you have the opportunity to close the road and charge a toll, then why wouldn't you?
And that's
So it
going to
just
happen.
really creates some interesting challenges. And I can't imagine the cost of a barrel of oil that has to go that route all the
Yeah.
way back to China. So, David, I was in Budapest last week, and I visited Lidl and Aldi. I was fascinated with the distinction between what we see in Aldi here in the U.S. and what I experienced in Hungary. When I walked in the doors, particularly in Lidl, I was just overcome by the aroma of fresh baked goods, the bakery in the store, and the number of consumers who were there early in the morning picking through to get their rolls and sweetbreads and whatever else. It was really interesting. We don't have that in the US. But David, you've been traveling quite a bit and you've learned something in a recent trip about food fraud in a high value product. Tell us more.
Right. Well, the family and I are just back from a 10-day holiday. It was terrific on the island of Crete. Now, you'll know Crete is Greece's biggest island. It's about the same size as Puerto Rico, just to give you some relativity. And I was last there, Charlie, 30 years ago to help their olive oil industry. Cretan oil has always been of the very, very highest quality. But 30 years ago, it was just sold at just bog standard commodity prices. Why? Because it had very tiny farms, poor market infrastructure, no product differentiation at all. And most was exported as just commodity olive oil, where to Italy, where it was blended with Italian olive oil, then re-exported, wait for it, as premium Italian olive oil. I mean,
Sure.
essentially, that's food fraud. And if we dwell on food fraud, it costs our industry and consumers $50 billion across the globe each year. What are the big items that are most fraudable, if you will? Number one is seafood. Number two, olive oil. Number three, honey. Number four, spices. And if I look at your market in the US, 80% of your seafood is imported. 95% of your olive oil comes from outside the country. 80% of your honey and 85% of your spices. So where are we now? So let's fast forward 30 years. I was really pleased to see that Cretan olive oil is now protected with PGI, protected geographical indication, and PDO, protective designation of origin status. It's a bit fancy, but you know what it's about. It's just like you can protect Champagne, Parmigiano Reggiano, Prosciutto di Parma. You don't have it, but you have your own form. For example, Tennessee whiskey, Idaho potatoes, and from Georgia, of course, Vidalia, if that's how you pronounce it, Vidalia onions. So, what did I find out? That 50% of Cretan olive oil still goes out in commodity barrels, and it's still blended with Italian olive oil to be sold as the real deal Italian olive oil. But we're getting better around the world at science-based traceability. So we've still got a long way to go to be able to say this oil comes from this area, in fact, from this farm. I don't know what your view on that is, Charlie.
Yeah, well, David, we actually work with Source Certain for provenance verification, and they do trace element analysis that can tell you exactly the source of olive oil or seafood or eggs down to a very minute distance. So, not just which farm an egg came from, but which barn. And that's increasingly important as we think about food fraud and the impact, as you mentioned, on consumers, but from our perspective, also on trust. As the
Yes.
Center for Food Integrity, anytime there is food fraud involved, it does violate consumer and public trust. So, our final topic of the day, I found this fascinating. We're always interested in learning about new technologies in agriculture, food processing, and retailing. But smart carts seem to be taking off in the UK. Tell us a little bit about what they are and how they're taking off and the impact on shoppers and retailers.
Right. So smart trolleys, right? I mean, some shoppers, not across all demographics, really like them. And these are AI-powered shopping carts. They feature inbuilt camera and scales to identify which items are placed in the trolley. It gives you that sort of super duper personalized shopping experience. And Morrison's, one of our major retailer, is just trialing them right now. And Tesco has got it on their list for coming up in the next few months. Actually, it's using American technology, Charlie. It's Instacart's Caper Carts.
Mhm.
Uh, I was interested because there was a study by the University of London, my university, for what it's worth, and they found shoppers using smart trolleys spent on average, wait for it, 32% more than those who didn't. They also
Wow.
bought 25% more items than non-users, and they spent a quarter more time in store. And the research shows clear spikes in spending and consumption of those who are lovers. I mean, I'm quite sure a fair proportion of people won't be bothered, but it's a really interesting insight. And what's more, they can really work this, I think, retailers. They can perhaps use to encourage people onto smart trolleys, perhaps tie it to extra loyalty points or I don't know, maybe prizes for the smartest smart trolley user. I can see that catching on with some demographics.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be fascinating, particularly as retailers look for any opportunity they can find to increase the time in store, the shopping, and of course, the high margin
Mhm.
products that they buy. David, I think we have time for maybe one final nugget, which I think is very, very interesting. We're seeing age gating of different kinds of technologies and products beginning to become more prominent around the world. Clearly, Europe is leading the way, and there's a new age gated product. Tell us a bit about that.
Right. Well, actually, this is legislation introduced by our previous prime minister, just as he exited from number 10 Downing Street. And what's more, he's banned energy drinks for the under 16s in England from April next year. And this applies to drinks containing more than 150 milligrams of caffeine per litre. And it will be illegal to sell to kids in shops, restaurants, cafes, and vending machines and online. And what's all the fuss about? Well, it's to reduce obesity levels and issues such as disturbed sleep and lack of concentration at school. There's 150,000 kids consume energy drinks every day. I see them every morning. If I pop out for a coffee or buy some fresh bread, then I can see like 11 and 12-year-olds walking up the high street, necking back a Monster or a Red Bull at like 8 o'clock in the morning. You think,
Wow.
really shouldn't be doing that. And so the brands particularly affected are Red Bull, Monster, Prime, and Relentless. But the lower caffeine soft drinks such as Coke aren't effective. So there we go. But it's another example of regulation and legislation in the UK. That's a long way from where you're going to be.
It is, it is. But I think we're beginning to see some of that. We're beginning to see cell phones banned in schools. We're beginning to see some other products. And there is a concern about the role of energy drinks and litigation after there's been some unfortunate fatalities with youth over the last couple of years with too much caffeine consumption. And I think as we continue to better understand the role of sleep in good health,
Yes.
that will continue to raise the profile of this topic in terms of pediatricians and others going, hang on, we need to have a larger discussion here about the role of energy drinks in disrupting sleep and the overall health of our youth. David, thank you so much as always. That's all the time we have for today. Your insight is always amazing and provides an interesting perspective that we all benefit from. So we're grateful for that. Again, please join us next month on September the 3rd for Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food. David Hughes, join us here at the Center for Food Integrity. Thanks again and have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.
Thanks, Charlie, and all. Bye now.